Hello everyone, it is Jayden and welcome to The Alpha, the show where we talk about the hottest topics in pop culture and sports. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button on the video, and if you enjoy my commentary and myself truly as always, be sure to tap that subscribe button and to hit that notification bell to get notified when all my videos go live. I love you guys so much. Peace, love, and positivity always, y'all. See ya. We all know I have looked forward to this movie for a very long time. Ever since it first got announced back in 2022. I remember it was April. And no, it wasn't April, it was 2023. April of 2023. And I remember when the DCU got announced, and when they announced Superman Legacy, I was excited. I was stoked. But I've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. And I have to say, and this is going to be a non-spoiler review. I'm going to have a spoiler review section mostly Sunday night. I want to get a couple of things together first to just get some thoughts and things I want to talk about in a spoiler section of my movie review. Where do I even start? Let me just go ahead and preface this. It is not James Gunn's best movie. It is not James Gunn's best work. But given all the stuff I have consumed when regards to media with this movie, I went in there with an open mind. I had my expectations way up high into the ceiling. And I had a lot of hope. And when I left the theater, I had a smile on my face and I had hope. This wasn't a great movie by any sorts of the imagination. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was well above average. It was well above average entertainment. If I had to rank it, I would rank it. Well, no, let's keep that. We're going to save the ranking. But I left out of the movie theater with a smile. And when in this movie review, I'm going to discuss the good things and the bad things. Let's start off with the good things. Let's first give a shout out to the cast. Rachel Brosnahan, David Cornsweet, Nicholas Hoult, the whole crew, the whole bit. They done an exceptional job in this movie. Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner, Isabella Merced. She was my least favorite character in the movie, but she still, all around the acting was great. The characters were portrayed well. The action was action-packed. It made you, when the action is literally the best part of the movie. It felt like the action sequences with the score in the background, it felt like it was cut and pasted out of Superman, the animated series. It's the Superman that I grew up with, and it's the Superman I've looked forward to for years, live action. And James Gunn accomplished that. It was fantastic to see. From the start and the jump of the movie, I had a smile on my face from the opening sequences with the flight sequences in the movie. In the beginning, with the leaked clip that they showed us where the CGI of Cornsweet looked bad, they redone it. It was the same scene. I had goosebumps with the score in the background. I had a big smile on my face. Every time the action with Superman, the moments with Lois and Clark, it was beautiful. It is the best I've seen since Superman, the movie in 1978. That's how good these types of moments were in this movie. That's the good. Let's get into some of the bad. The pacing in this movie was a major problem. And I'm going to tell you why. When the rumor was going around that this movie was originally 2.5 hours, and it was cut. And there was this rumor going around that James Gunn and the Peter Safran allegedly cut the original person who was cutting and doing all the production on the movie. I could tell, because in the beginning of the movie, there was some pacing problems. You had one scene, I don't know if it was just because James Gunn was going for this comic book feel, which is, this movie is very comic booky. But you could tell from the way things happen in the first act of the movie, and you cut from it, it turns pitch black, and you cut into a whole different scene. You could tell that stuff was cut from this film. Very important stuff. Because this movie did not feel like 2 hours. I looked at my phone, and we were an hour and a half in. I'm like, shoot, the movie's almost over. I wanted more. And that was a big problem in this movie, is the pacing. You could have added those 20 minutes into this film. I don't know if Warner Brothers advised Gunn to make it shorter, to make it 2 hours. I don't know. But you could tell in the first act of the movie, the pacing was a big issue, because something would happen, cut. Screen goes black for a half a second, then you move on to the next scene. There was just you could tell there were scenes that were possibly cut up that built up to that next scene that they cut out. That was a major issue. Another issue, the second act. I had this discussion as soon as I left the movie theater. When we went out to dinner, I sat there and said, if you could put the first act of this movie in the third act and put it in the second act of this movie could have been a 9 out of 10. That's how good the last act of this movie and the first act is. But that second act of the movie, it wasn't horribly bad. It was okay. It wasn't good. It wasn't great. It was just okay. I didn't get bored. I probably got bored in one specific little section of the movie, and guys will figure that out maybe when I'm talking about. But it's not a spoiler. It's in the trailers. So Superman eventually got captured, and we see that from that point when that happens. That's last 15 minutes, and I got a little bored, just a little bit, not super bored. And I wasn't taken wholly out of the movie, but I was just sitting there, okay, when is stuff going to start? I just got that feel. But that was during the second act. And that hurt the movie. It really, really hurt the movie. And the only reason why it docked, that's why only docked the points. Something else. Too many characters. You guys will notice this when you get ready to watch this movie. The amazing chemistry and portrayals of these characters by David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, and Nicholas Hoult. It was phenomenal. It felt like it was straight out of out of Superman the Animated Series. I loved the way the character for Superman was wrote. Although I got another bad portion of him, I got this in the bad portion of it. The way he was wrote, the chemistry with him and Rachel Brosnahan and Lex Luthor, specifically in that final act with the first act between Superman and Lois Lane was amazing. And then in the third act, the interactions between Lex and Superman was amazing. If you could have took that and mushed it together more in this movie, again, 9 out of 10 film. Absolute 9 out of 10, maybe even 10 out of 10 without an hesitation. You'd have an absolute, even though this movie's still good, but you would have had an absolute banger on your hands. That was what the film was missing. And you know why I say that? Because you had to take away from that because of characters like Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, and Hawkgirl, and maybe Crypto, and some other side characters, the Engineer, and things of that nature. They all serve their purpose in the movie, outside of Hawkgirl. and maybe Guy Gardner. I mean, they kind of serve their purpose still. They took away just from the feel of it being a solo Superman movie. And I say this because the movie just did not feel right and didn't solely feel like a Superman movie when the Justice Gang was on the screen. I loved Mr. Terrific. Do not get me wrong. He was a scene stealer. The man did an amazing job. I love the way the character was. Same thing with Guy Gardner. The only character I really did not like whatsoever was Hawkgirl. James Gunn needs to go back to the drawing board. She just did not feel like Hawkgirl. She just did not feel. I don't like her. I didn't like her costume. The scene she was in didn't feel right. She was making this weird noise and sound when she doing her fight scenes and when she was flying. Just Hawkgirl. If I had one character I wish would have never been in this movie, it would have been Hawkgirl. And that is sad to say because I'm from Justice League anime series. Granted, this is not Shire or Hall. This is Kendra. But I love the Hawkgirl character. But if it was left up to me, I would not have even had her in this film. Same thing with Guy Gardner. Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl altogether probably summed up out of this 2-hour movie 10 minutes. They did not have a lot of screen time. Granted, they were part of the plot, and that's the reason why the plot wasn't the best, and we're going to get to that later. But it's just they added to too many characters. Moving on to the next thing. And I know this feels like more negatives than positives, but we're going to get to the grand just positives of it all. I just need to get the bads off my chest. The horrible leak that was going around regarding this one little entity, regarding this Superman film the whole time. It was the super crap rumor. With the monkeys, Lex Luthor, the rumor that was going around with the Lex Luthor had these monkeys going around on social media crapping on Superman, and they were putting out this thing called hashtag super S word. I wanted to hope and pray it wasn't true, but it ended up being true, and it was so stupid. It was just one of those, it felt like a James Gunn type joke. It did not work. It was just so dumb. Did not like that whatsoever. Next thing we're going to get to, the plot. Missed opportunity. The movie was written specifically to be able to have all of these characters have a job, specifically the side characters. This plot was made for Guy Gardner, mainly Guy Gardner, Metamorpho, and Hawkgirl. Because Mr. Terrific in the third act, him and Superman is pretty much teaming up together, and they're in the third act doing their thing, and something happens somewhere else, and Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Metamorpho, they're helping do that thing. I'm not going to go into deep discussions with it. We'll get to it in spoilers, and I'm going to expound upon that in the next coming days. I'm trying to do it Sunday night. But the plot for this movie is so frustrating because there's some minor nitpicks that I have, some things specifically in the second act. Remind you, we're talking about the second act here that needed some help. You could have took portions of the second act, rewritten them, and it would have made the movie way better. The plot was a problem. The plot took away really from the focus of Superman, Lois, and Lex Luthor. To be able to add in stuff for these characters to do with Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, Engineer, Ultraman, etc. That is another problem I have. And finally, my final nitpick. Superman got beat up just a little too much. I understand, James Gunn wanted to get away from this Superman that was all powerful. He didn't want to see it. What's the fun in watching a movie where Superman is all powerful, beating everybody up that he runs into. It's not fun for most modern audiences. But at the end of the day, we're talking about Superman. And he was getting beat around just a little too much for my taste. In the third act, it felt like he finally wanted to be Superman. It's like James Gunn said, all right, guys, let's just get tired of Superman getting his rump kicked. Let's actually let him be Superman. And it was the best. The final act was the best parts of the movie. Because Superman turns up and feels like Superman in his own right. That is the major issue I have. And probably the most. If he would have implemented what he did for Superman in the final act across the whole movie, it probably would have overshadowed some of these other issues that I'm talking about. Because it would have just made the Superman movie just feel, okay, although this story is bad, you're still getting a lot of Superman kicking butt. Because Superman gets his rump kicked a lot. And it's what a lot of people didn't like about the movie. But I'm not going to kill it that much for that, because I still had a great time, and I thought the action sequences, even when Superman was getting his butt kicked, they were great. That is the good and the bad, but just let's get to my rating. But first, before we get into the rating, let me tell you guys this. This movie and what James Gunn did accomplished what I feel like Henry Cavill should have done. This movie felt like Superman. Ripped right out of the Superman animated series, Justice League Unlimited. You can argue the best media that DC has ever put out since DC has existed. TV-wise and movie-wise. James Gunn did that, implemented into this movie. Specifically in the first act and the third act. This movie, as a Superman fan, for the last 30 minutes, had me almost at the edge of my seat, ready to cheer on Superman. With the score, the fight sequences, the tension between Lex and Superman, the stakes on the line, feeling like if Superman don't save the world is going to end. It was beautiful. And if you could have implemented that into the second act of the movie, this would have been the best Superman film ever created. Yes, it's better than Man of Steel. Yes, it would have been better than the 1978 Christopher Reeve. But it did drop the ball on that front. And I walked out of the theater super frustrated, knowing that the stuff that occurred in this movie, there was a lot of great things that happened that should have, you walked out of this movie saying, what if? And to a lot of people, that's not a good thing to say when you walk out of a movie. But I have to admit, I walked out of this movie saying, what if? James Gunn had the formula. He had it. He had the right tone for Superman. Everything was right. It just the execution wasn't fully there. But given this is the first installment of the DCU, given the amount of pressure that James Gunn was under making this film, knowing that he was going to have to go in, you couldn't please everybody. You can't please fans of the Snyder Superman. You possibly can't satisfy fans who are possibly fans of different iterations of Superman in the comic books. And we know the discourse that was going on when leading up to this movie. but yet James Gunn was able to deliver a movie that in the end, although I left saying, what if, I left out of the movie theater with a smile on my face. I walked out of the movie theater saying, I could go watch this again. And that is the ultimate goal as a filmmaker. No matter the flaws of the movie, it's more important for your audiences to go out of your movie saying, that movie was good, I would watch it again. That's the main goal. Not every movie you're going to make is going to be generational. You're not going to make the next Dark Knight. But it's important to make a movie where your audience walks out saying, that was a good movie, I will watch that again. And I am going to go watch it again in the theaters. I'm going to give them some more of my money because this movie deserves it. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It wasn't even good. If there was something between good and great, that would be where I would be. Because a great movie to me is a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Good, about a 6.5, 7. I'm in the lines, and we're going to get to my review and rating here. I'm more in the lines between a 7.5 and an 8. The critic in me wants to give it a 7.5 because of all of the good with the cast, the characters, and the action. But there was more bad than good. The pacing, the second act, too many characters, the super crap, Superman getting beat up too much, and just some of the plot. But the fan in me, who has been waiting for a Superman movie for the longest time, leaving out of the theater with a smile on my face, watching this movie, having a smile on my face for a lot of things that go on in the movie, in the first act and the third act. Ladies and gentlemen, that third act alone, I told anybody, that third act alone is a reason to just go back and watch it. Because I just want to relive that moment again in the third act of the movie. It was wonderful. It was a great time. So with that, I'm going to give this film an 8. When I walked out of the theater, I originally said a 7. But when I got out of the movie theater, discussed it with some friends and family, I decided that I'm going to come up with an 8 out of 10. And I have a hot take. Ladies and gentlemen, David Cornsweet is possibly now my favorite Superman ahead of Henry Cavill. Now, take that with a grain of salt. Because listen, I really do think if Henry Cavill could have possibly did what David Cornsweet did. I do. But just something about David Cornsweet, the way he talked was different from Henry Cavill. It felt like Superman the Animated Series. I saw bits and pieces of that in the Justice League version of the Justice League, but it just didn't feel like Henry Cavill Superman because I was so used to the 2013 darker, just not much emotion. This Superman had emotion, not emotional to the point to where he's a big baby. No, this Superman, he cared about life, he cared about human beings, and he wanted to do right 24/7. That's the Superman we love and the dynamic we love because whenever he gets ready to team up with Batman, hopefully in the future, that's when those two personalities collide and it ends up being a perfect mashup. So shout out to David Cornsweet. Absolute masterclass that he put on. I know it was hard. It was hard getting this job. That job came with a lot of baggage and he produced. He put on a fantastic performance. Nicholas Hoult, just super refreshing from what we did have with whoever, I don't even remember, Jesse Eisenberg, I think was his name, that done Lex Luthor in Batman v Superman. Night and day, way, way, way better. It felt like Lex Luthor. There was some minor nitpicks I might have had with him with his acting with Lex Luthor. He got a little, just a little extra, just a little over the top sometimes. But still, I think it is the best Lex Luthor we've had in live action. I really do. Same thing that goes with Rachel Brosnahan. She done an absolutely sensational job as Lois Lane. I wish that we could have expounded upon her and David Cornsweet's relationship in this movie because there was a plot hole. Well, that's getting too far into spoilers. We're not even going to get a deal. I'll discuss that later in spoilers. But I just wanted to be able to expound upon her and Clark's relationship more. And some more tension between Luthor and Superman. But given, again, what we got, I'm grateful. With the bits and pieces I've got, I was a happy camper. And I could give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. I can't really specifically say now if I would rather watch this. Well, I wouldn't say rather watch this. If this is better than Man of Steel, it is better than Superman Returns for me. And I can't specifically say if it's better than 1978 Superman. I mean, I need to go back and watch 1978 Superman because it's been a good minute since I watched it. But I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. I'm going to go watch it again so I can give a better further thought of what I think if this is a better movie than The Man of Steel. But all in all, I had a good time. We need to go support this movie because it deserves it. It is a great introduction to the DCU. And I left out of this theater, which is very important. I left out of the theater ready for the future and ready and stoked for what the DCU has in store because we're going to sit here and discuss it next. Some stuff that is discussed in these upcoming articles that we're fixing to read regarding the future of the DCU. I'm excited. I can't wait. At the what Guy Gardner did, he was a fantastic cast, and Nathan Fillion did a fantastic job. Although I think he shouldn't have been in this movie because it took away from Superman, but he was still enjoyable. I loved him in this film. I'm ready to see how he is with Aaron Pierre as John Stewart and the guy playing Hal Jordan in the Lanterns Buddy Cop. We got our first little look here at somebody who ends up in the she is in the end. She's not in the post-credit scene, but she's in the end of the movie. I don't know. I mean, we kind of know it, but we're going to discuss that in spoilers. But I'm ready to see what that character has in store in the future. And, you know, we've talked about with Batman being casted and Wonder Woman. The future of the DCU is bright. It's a great introduction. Maybe in a sequel. I talked about it with somebody I went to go see the movie with. A sequel with bringing Nicholas Hoult back as Lex Luthor, possibly doing a Brainiac Dark Side. I would love to see that in a Superman sequel. We're just going to have to wait and see. This is my non-spoiler review of Superman. We're going to get into spoilers Sunday night. Hopefully, if I don't get it to you by Sunday night, definitely by Monday night. I'm going to get more in depth of some things that I didn't like, but a lot of what I liked. And what a movie. What a movie. It's been polarizing to the fan base. I see why. But I'm interested to see what type of money it's going to make. And y'all guys need to go out and support the film. You got my stamp of approval, so to speak, to go and see Superman. What did you guys think of Superman? Have you watched it? Did you enjoy it? Did you not like it? What did you not like? What did you like? I want to know all of your comments down below.